Hello and welcome to DDOCast episode 487, recorded live on Sunday, September 10th. I'm your host, Patrick. With me this week, we have coming back to the show, Even Note. Welcome back.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Good to be back here.
It was nice to have you on the show. We also have Evil Beaker.
Good morning, everyone.
This week's screenshot. A perfect sunset vista takes top honors in the 332nd screenshot of the week. Thanks, Vroom Vroom, for sending this week's screenshot. I like that name. That's a fun name to say. And really easy to pronounce. I love easy names to pronounce. I think that's got to be the Veil.
Yeah.
And probably the Vista over by Rainbow in the Dark. This is about the right angle, right?
That's what it looks like, yeah.
We'd like to talk about Dungeons & Dragons online nearly every weekend. You can watch us through Twitch, YouTube, the DDO forums, iTunes, or our website, DDOCast.com. DDOCast is hosted by Cyber Ears, the awesome podcast hosting network. Shows are usually available within a few days of recording. The next show will probably be next weekend. You can stay updated by following us on our social media pages or our website, DDOCast.com. We also have a calendar that includes not just our shows, but also the sales and bonus days. The next show, we are planning on doing a more in-depth look at free-to-play versus premium versus VIP, and why you should be at least premium. That's probably where the discussion will go. The free-to-play versus premium is pretty small potatoes, but it's pretty easy to go from one to the other. But yeah, so we're going to look at those kind of the differences between those, what you get for being a VIP versus being the other two, and all that kind of stuff. For this week, we do have some news to talk about. Lamannia had update 36 patch 2, so we'll talk about that. But our main discussion here is we're going to continue our new series on leveling. So some listeners were asking for leveling guides, so this is kind of how we're doing it. And again, so we're going to be talking about levels 4 to 6. And what we mean by this is we're going to be talking about the quests that are on normal levels 4 to 6. So we're talking specifically about the quests. At the end, we'll kind of give give you a roadmap of what we kind of tend to do from 4 to 6. But really, we want to go kind of in-depth and talk about the quests that are available at this range. And kind of give you an idea of, some of our favorites, the ones we're always going to run, and maybe some quests that you may wish to avoid. Or, maybe some buyer beware kind of quests, some of the in between and that kind of a thing. So we'll should give you a pretty good idea of what's available at these levels. Last time we kind of went step by step 1 through 3. I'll probably try to frame the discussion kind of in that direction. But there's a lot of overlap at levels 4 to 6. And even really, we'll probably start talking about Waterworks and STK pretty quick. Those ones even have quests that are actually level 3 as part of their chain. And so we kind of talked about them a little bit last time. So keep that in mind. We'll kind of generally try to talk from 4 to 5 to 6, but there's going to be a lot of overlapping just because of how a lot of these quests kind of come together and the different areas and kind of stuff like that. With that, I think just because they have quests at level 3, I think let's just start by talking about Waterworks and STK. So Waterworks Part 3 and 4 are level 4, and STK Parts 2 and 3. Part 2 is level 4, Part 3 is level 5, Part 1 being level 3. So let me just ask, do you guys run this? Do you always run these quests? Do you have anything you want to say about them specifically?
Yeah, I'll start out. I mean, Waterworks and SDK, which is Chantal Core for those who don't recognize the abbreviation. For our group, those are key quests because number 1, they're Coin Lord favor. Number 2, they've actually changed some of the treasure in those end quests over the years, and it brought it up a little bit. I mean, if you're below 6th level, I think the loot is still valid, but they're great quests, and they give out a good amount of XP for that level.
even considering their length.
Yeah. I mean, and they're not short quests. So if you're going to hit these quests, understand that they're going to be a little longer. But I mean, I think recently the last time we ran through them, we ran them on Reaper, and you're looking at even more XP. Remnants, Reaper XP, the whole works. I think that, and I believe Waterworks is free to play, but SDK I don't think is. So if you're a starting player, you definitely got to hit Waterworks. I think it's a great introduction to a lot of the other kinds of chains of quests that you see as we go up higher in levels.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I generally try to, especially Waterworks. I mean, Waterworks is kind of like a rite of passage. It's like, okay, now this toon isn't a complete noob anymore. Run some decent quests, gotten some gear, probably died at the hands of a kobold shaman or two. STK, I don't seem to run as much, partly because I get lost in there. But yeah, definitely run Waterworks. STK is actually pretty fun. And the XP per minute may not be great, but yeah, because they are a bit longer, but they're fun quests. You will get some nice XP and some nice gear. So yeah, I would definitely put both of them on my to-do list.
Yeah, these are kind of interesting quests because they're older quests, so they tend to have aged and gotten easier, just with the way the game has kind of progressed, which is kind of typical of older quests. Not all of them, but and I'll actually kind of mention one of them in a minute. They've gotten a little easier. SDK though, particularly part 2, more so than the other ones. There's some kind of side passages that you can go down. If you know the path, SDK Part 2, you can probably shave about 10-15 minutes off of it if you don't go down a couple of directions that you don't need to. And you're only going to get a little bit of extra XP for a couple optionals. So when you start looking at the speed and the kind of the TR groups that are doing a lot of those right now, they're not really going to go down a lot of those side paths that they don't need to, if any. So you can kind of shorten those runs a little bit. But yeah, the XP for the length and the level is actually pretty darn good. It is quite a bit higher than most of them. I do want to just put a little bit of a buyer beware on Waterworks Part 4. And this is, again, if you know, it's not a linear quest. You can go in a lot of different directions. You're trying to find a body. You're trying to find, well, I don't know if you actually, spoiler alert, I don't know if you actually know that he's dead. If you don't know that by now, you haven't run it. But so you're looking for this guy, Ven. So you have to find him, and that can be a little tricky. So you might have to look for him a little while. You also have to go kill one specific kobold in the dungeon. Pro tip, go left. As Evil Beaker and I will tell you from our pen and paper days, left is the direction to just go.
Yep. When in doubt, go left.
Yep. Which actually does have, I mean, that does actually have a reasoning, and it actually applies here. That for whatever reason, game designers have tended to make left the direction you want to go. Probably because people have a tendency, all things being equal, to go right, so they tend to make it go to the left. So if you don't know which way to go in any game, go left. It works. So there's actually completely on that topic and completely going more down the rabbit trail. There was a game, I don't remember what it's called, but there was this crazy maze that RPG game with a crazy maze, and it turned out the way you needed to go was just turn left at every junction, which is kind of funny. Anyways, on topic. So just be aware with Waterworks Part 4, it's not very linear. You can go in different directions. You're trying to find this, and it's in random locations. You have to open gates to find him. So just kind of be aware of that. Some people like to avoid some of that stuff, particularly if they're trying to be in a hurry. But it's not too. This one's not too hard to find, and people tend to split up in here a little bit more often. Which if you're running it on Reaper 7, maybe you shouldn't. Although if you're running this on Reaper 7, you probably don't need our advice on what to run. In any case, so that covers Waterworks and SDK. They do have some good loot. It hasn't aged as well because it hasn't really been updated in a long while, and the new random loot kind of overshadows it a little bit, but there's still some nice things in there.
Yeah, I think they added the red slots to a lot of the weapons.
Yeah.
I think in both the quests. But I did want to mention for the long-term players, if they go, oh, Chantelcore, I hate the ending. Now, well, they changed it a couple of years ago.
It's true.
So the end of Chantelcore used to be extremely difficult because the giant wasn't really a giant. He was a construct, I believe. And the only way to damage him was with magic missile for the most part. And unless you had a wizard in the party with magic missile, you didn't finish that quest. Not at level, anyway.
Now it's actually a stone golem, and it
Yep.
looks like a stone golem.
Yes.
It does not hit like a stone golem. It's a lot. It's not hard anymore. And again, the game has progressed to the point where that used to be a really difficult fight, but that was back when level cap was 10, and there was a lot of different things in the game. You could only have 4 enhancements. Things have changed a lot. Yeah. So let's talk about some. I just want to mention, just in case someone is making sure we mention every quest. There is a level 4 quest in the Catacombs. It's the Capstone quest. Within 2 minutes of starting the quest, you will be dead or you will have finished. And you have to run off Catacombs. It's really short, so we're not really going to talk about it. That's as much as we're going to need to talk about it. If you've done Catacombs all the way through, yeah, you're going to do it. So if you haven't, you're not going to. In any case, so kind of eyeing specifically level 4, bleeding into some other things. Where do you guys go next? What are some quests that you like at level 4, or don't like if you want to go that direction?
I'll say this.
Sorry, go ahead.
Nope, ladies first. Go ahead.
Who are you calling a lady? One chain I always do the depth chain. The XP isn't super, but the quests are really, really short, and has the added benefit of having a lot of different types of monsters. So I almost always get at least a couple of monster manual marks for some XP when I'm in there.
And there's 2 of these at level 4, 2 of them at level 5.
Yeah, so that's right in that 4 to 6 range.
If you're doing the Reaper thing, these can be really nice. Again, they're not great from the heroic XP standpoint, but because they're so short, you're not Reaper XP the way that it works. You do get penalized a little bit for the length of the quest, but not a whole lot. Like the percentage, particularly when you're talking about it's a percentage base, and since the XP at these levels isn't really huge from a Reaper standpoint, anyways, you don't really notice the hit. So shorter quests can actually be a little bit better for Reaper if you're looking at time per Reaper XP. So they're popular for that reason alone. Just watch out which barrels you break in the last one if you don't want to play with fire elementals.
Mm-hmm.
They do have a lot of variation of the monsters, though, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, and that's a quest. That's a couple of quests that you can crank out in an evening of play. So if you did all 4 and you were running them at medium speed, it probably would take you an hour or maybe a little more than that. Yeah.
The hardest thing, the one kind of buyer beware thing here is because there's a variation of monsters, you may need a variety of weapons. Ghost Touch, and the third one has some wraiths and some elementals, earth elementals, which has some pretty decent DR. So that can be a little bit of a pain point, but otherwise it's not too difficult of quests. What else do you guys like? What were you gonna bring out, Evil Beaker?
Well, I'm actually a big fan, and it can be a difficult quest depending on where you are. Irestone Inlet. Mm-hmm. I love this quest because it has a lot of chests. It's great whenever they're putting coins in chests, or during the Mimic Festival. It's always a popular one. But it's a great quest to do as a group. Individual, you might, depending on your level, you might get punted in that one a little bit. But because the shot or the clerics do have Ray of Exhaustion, which can be a little brutish, and you got to make sure you go in there with enough inventory space, because there's at least, I was trying to count them in my head. There's at least 7 chests, maybe 8, if you
Something
get
like
one.
that, yeah.
If you get one of the rares. But I mean, that's a great one to pick up extra loot if you're looking for low level gear. And the XP's not bad on it either.
No,
And
pretty good.
then just make sure you exit the ship. We actually make that a major thing, is sitting there watching the ship blow up, and they changed the animation on it at some point. But one of the guys decided to take a bathroom break and didn't realize the ship was going to blow up.
Oops.
In our group a while back. So you can die if you're on the ship. So
It'd be hilarious if they actually made it so if you were on the ship when you died, your soul stone ended up in a random location in the quest. Yeah,
That would be awesome.
I put this in my favorites, in the favorites category. It's not a quest that I always run, for some of the reasons you mentioned. Like, if you're not in a group, it can be a bit of a tougher quest. There's a lot of casters, and there's a couple of ogres, which can hit pretty darn hard. So it's hobgoblins, ogres, and wargs.
And some kobolds.
And some kobolds. So there's a little bit of a toughness there, and there's a fairly high number of mobs as well. But I do love the quest. It's a fun little quest. The XP's about right for it too. So
you got to have a good strength going in there because you got to carry all the barrels. I can remember that being a problem one time when we were all casters or something and didn't have any fighters, and it's like, whoops.
Then you got to share the load.
Yeah, if you're on like a rogue and you're soloing, that's probably not the best quest to run.
Well, you can also clear it and then you go back and get the barrels and stuff like that too. So there's ways to get around that. So, well, we kind of mentioned it already. I'm just gonna throw out kind of just to check it off as an avoid. Proof is in the poison, which I think I mentioned in passing. This quest has a lot of things that are against it for new players, and if you're doing it on a Reaper, is not a popular quest. The quest itself is fine. It's a tough quest for its level. This is a level 4 quest. The first part has just a barrage of traps that are difficult at best to disable, just from a standpoint of figuring out where the box is and getting to the box. This quest is very long. It's easy to get lost in because the halls all kind of look alike, and they all kind of fold in on each other and go in crazy directions. It's a somewhat linear quest, but there's a lot of kind of backtracking, if that makes sense. So you if you can see on the video, I'll kind of do this weird thing with my finger where you kind of go in this direction, and then you go back the way you came to a different area, and then you kind of go back and follow along. It's not a going in one direction kind of quest. You have to figure out where you're going a little bit, so that can be a little annoying. And the thing is just populated with Quickfoot casters, which are annoying for 2 reasons. One, the Quickfoot have a tendency to be in stealth mode, so they're a little harder to find. And these things just cast a lot of spells at you. I think it's mostly like Magic Missile and Melsas and Arrow kind of stuff. So it's defensible, but particularly if you're a newer player, you may not be ready for that. A lot of Magic Missiles and that kind of stuff. So it's just not a popular quest. I think it is Coin Lord's favor, but you don't need it. Yeah, there's no loot.
It doesn't have good loot in it. It is Coin Lord. Yeah.
Which is the only good thing
I
about
usually run it when I'm at least a couple levels over. I hate to run it at a level. It's really tough.
Yeah, it's...
And long.
When we're looking at level 4 quests, it's probably... I'm going to say that it's probably the hardest level 4 quest. There's a close second, but that one's a lot shorter. And there's another one that it's easy, which we'll talk about, that it's easy to fail, but it's not hard per se. This one is just, it's long, the shrines are few and far between. You're probably not ready for
There
this.
There is only one shrine, isn't there?
There may be.
I believe so.
And for as long as the quest is, if there's only one, if there's at most 2, there might be a second one somewhere.
No, I'm looking at the map. There's only one.
Yeah, which is a far cry below the average of number of shrines. ST STK is like part 2 is probably about the same length, maybe a little bit shorter even. Even if you do all of the side parts, it's probably a little bit shorter, and it's got more shrines than this place. So it's just not a fun, it's not a fun level 4 quest. If you're at level 20 and you just need a little bit of Coin Lord favor, go somewhere else. There's easier Coin Lord favor to get what you want. So there we go. What else? Level 4. Looking more at the level 4s. What else do we want to talk about here?
Well, I'll mention a quest that used to be another one that used to be hard, but has gotten easier as the game has progressed. Is Fresh in the Air.
This is the other one. This was my close second to the hardest level 4.
I was going to say that. Yeah, I've never been a big fan of Fresh in the Air.
So I remember running this quest and getting party wiped in it way back in the day because it's brutal. It's got tons of troglodyte casters. If you got a bad constitution, you get troglodyte poison. And it's timed, and there's a lot of people that aren't a big fan of timed quests. But I think over the years this quest has gotten easier. But it's still. I mean, if you want to if you're a newer player and you want to challenge yourself, yeah, this is a quest that you might want to take a poke at.
It's a lot easier. Again, it's a caster thing problem, right? Like that's where the difficulty really comes in, because you get to that main room where you're trying to break all the boxes, and there's casters everywhere, and they're throwing a lot of magic missiles. They also have I think Scorching Ray is kind of the other one that they really like. So again, if you're prepared for that, nowadays we have ship buffs. You can get 30 fire resistance at level 1 if you have the right ship buffs. So there's kind of ways that we've made this easier, but it's still a little bit of a tougher quest. So.
And in that room, all the casters are mostly up on ledges. So if you're melee, if you don't have some kind of a decent ranged attack, you're just going to be sitting there taking damage and not able to do anything about it.
And you can't get up until you break all the boxes, which means you got to aggro all of them. So alert becomes a problem. As a kind of a cheap shot, it does get a lot of alert, but I've always kind of like ran around the room forgetting the boxes and run over to the corner where the gate is, where the casters can't really get you, and just drop a cookie AoE or something and fight them all there. You don't have to grab all of them at the same time, but it makes it a little bit easier. But yeah, it's not a favorite quest of mine at all. This is solidly on my avoids list. Let's see, for level 4, I think what that leaves us with is Sharn Syndicate, which is a nice chain. They just updated the loot out of here too, which to answer the question from Titan in the chat room, yes, you have to finish the capstone quest to get the named loot. In order to get the capstone quest, you have to run all the other ones, which you can run mostly in any order. There's 2 quests that are linked: the Storm Mirror's Fresco and Repossession. You have to run Storm Mirror's Fresco before you run Repossession, but the other ones you can run in any order. So you do have to run them all if you want to get the revised loot. This is kind of an interesting chain, because I would say the ones that are popular to run are Dirty Laundry, Storm Mirror's Fresco, and Repossession. These are all fairly short. I mean, they're all the Sharn Syndicate is mostly pretty short. But these 3 are short. They're pretty easy. The hardest thing that you might have to worry about, there are some traps in Dirty Laundry and Repossession. Repossession being the more problematic one. You can get around it, but there's some traps in there. Storm Mirror's Fresco is probably the hardest part of that if you're running it on Titan, or running on Reaper. You have to kill some of the guards probably in order to get your Reaper XP, because you have to kill 10 things. That's the hardest thing about that one, is you may not get 10 kills. But those 3 are all really easy. There is the first one, which is Stand Your Ground. Kind of a take it or leave it one. It's one of those quests where you have to defend a point. So you may need to some people just don't like to do those quests because they take time for things to spawn. They're just not as quick. They're it's kind of a reverse timing thing. You have to wait to get certain points to kill stuff. So some people, particularly if they're kind of doing the Zerg XP runs, will avoid it. If you're gonna do the whole thing though, you have to do it, and it's not a bad quest at all. It just takes a little bit of time. Come out and slay is the capstone. It's actually a pretty a little bit of a fun quest. It's kind of got some interesting side things you can do to it. You get to pick which bad guy is going to be on your side. Again, it's not terribly long, not terribly difficult. The only thing is you have to have someone that can open it, which means they have to have done all of them. The one that is hard, and again, this is the one that it's not hard per se. It's just really easy to fail. Is Bookbinder Rescue. The reason why it's easy to fail is there's 4 or 5 people you have to rescue.
I think it's 5.
And they're all related to Coil.
Something like that. There's traps in here. It's really easy to aggro the mobs inside of the rooms, which will then... So you activate the room, and if there's a person you're supposed to be guarding in there, they start attacking that person, and they die really easy. So if any one of these 5 people die, you fail the quest. You have to save them all. So it's...
And there are traps in front of all the doors, so you aggro stuff and you can't get in there to save it, and you're still disabling traps they're trying to, and your binders are getting killed. Yeah, I would like that chain a lot better without that quest.
Yeah, it's the pain point in the quest chain. And so the reason why I kind of identified Dirty Laundry, Stormweaver, Fresco, Repossession is, in my experience with a group or two that are kind of doing that chain TR, are really drugging through things, those are the ones that they do. They don't do Bookbinder because, again, for the reasons we just mentioned. And because you're not doing Bookbinder, you can't do Come Out and Slay, and so they don't do Stand Your Ground. That's kind of how that logic happens, because Stand Your Ground is a little bit slower. And they don't need to, because there's enough level 4 quests that you can get to your next level anyways. So that's just kind of how I've noticed Storm Syndicate to come out. Having said that, I do like the quest chain a lot. So it's kind of in that weird... I like it. Bookbinder Rescue. If you've got a rogue, you can unlock the doors. Because if you start bashing on the door, it activates the room. If you unlock the door and then open it, it's a lot easier. So if you have a really good rogue, Bookbinder Rescue can be a walk in the park. If you don't, it's a bit of a pain.
Yeah, or you grab one out of the store for a couple of points. That's typically what we end up doing.
Yeah. So, and yeah, with Titan is pointing out in the Mimic Hunt is coming back sometime soon. Stormweaver's Fresco, they don't let you get mimics in that quest because people found that you could open all the storage units in there and spawn mimics, and that was not intended. Because there's a lot of boxes in there. Anyways, I think that pretty much... Oh, there's Rest for the Restless in House P, which is level 4 quest. I have it in the take it or leave it pile. I don't really have... It's a lot of undead. There's some arcane casters at the end, but it's not.
And there's that flippy lever thing where you got to run back and forth.
Yeah.
And yeah, that if you're looking for House P favor, yeah, do it. If you're not, then yeah, that's another one that I kind of avoid.
If you're looking for House P favor, run Tangleroot, which we didn't talk about. Tangleroot has some level 4 quests. Tangleroot actually has quests at level 3, quests at level 4, quests at level 5, quests at 6, and at 7. I think it's like 2 each.
We usually do Tangleroot around 5th level. So we take a little bit of an XP hit for the first couple of quests, but then we're usually, by the time we're at the end, we're usually pulling down some pretty good XP.
Yeah, I've actually, before Reaper came out, I would actually, at level 3, I would run the level 3s, and then I would come back at level 4, and come back at level 5, and come back at level... I would just kind of keep coming back to maximize the XP. They're easy quests. They're not available on Reaper. We talked about this last week. Even Cordovan. Like, why are these not on Reaper? And there were concerns... Part of the reason was there were concerns that it would be too easy to farm Reaper XP. I don't know that really holds water, because it's pretty easy to farm Reaper XP with other quests that are even shorter.
But, yeah.
I think there is some validity though to the, and this was also mentioned I think at the time it was coming out. They don't want to trap people with this idea that, hey, I'm level 5 or level 4, I'm going to go run Tangrowth on Reaper, and then you end up in a level 7 quest by the end of it, which is a concern. I mean, that's kind of a more valid reason. I think players can get around that or just get their butts kicked and move on. But it is a weird. I think that quest chain. I was gonna say it's got the widest level range, but I think that may actually be CO6 goes from 6 to 10 as well. So there is some stuff there.
And it can be confusing for first-time players too, because a couple of those quests are kind of linked in together, interactive. You got to go through one quest to get to the other quest, because it's all in the same. You're running through the same area every time, which, by the way, is an awesome way to get collectibles. This quest chain has probably the most collectibles in it than any other quest chain I've seen.
And it's a great new player place to go, with the exception of the wide level range, which can catch you off guard if you're not really ready for it. But
and the repetitiveness.
We'll see. That's why I think it's actually a really great new player quest to go into, because you don't have to. You can do a lot of quests, and this can get you a lot of XP. And because you're repeating the area, they're slightly different. They're different mob and breakdowns like that. But because you're repeating the quest, I think it's harder to get lost because you know which way you're going. It has that kind of going for it. It is a nice quest chain. It's one of my favorite quest chains. I just don't run it as much anymore. It also has great loot at the end of it. So, I mean, well, some of the random loot is kind of comparable to it, but it's got some nice loot to it. So, especially it's got one of the only Death Ward cookies in the game. So, if nothing else, that's a great reason to run it.
That's true. It's worth running it just for that.
Yeah.
And the totem staff is a good, if you wanted to summon Spider, I think is what the good one is off of that. And you're not a caster. That's a good item to have too.
Yeah. All right, so I think we can kind of move into level 5. What do you guys like at level 5?
I start hitting those House K quests mostly because at this point I am starting to need bank space.
Yep. I agree.
Some of them are fun too.
Yeah, the House K quest. So there's I think 2 at 5, 2 at 6, and 1 at 7. We're talking about the ones that are in the tavern that you get out of the tavern, which I don't remember the name of that tavern.
Everfull Flagon.
Yep.
Yes, very nice. The level 5s, I think, are Lair of Summoning and Chamber of Insanity. And then level 6 is Forgotten Caverns and something else. I can't remember off the top of my head. I have to look it up. But they're all pretty short. There's some traps to watch out for, but other than that, they're not bad.
Yeah.
Ruined Halls, that's the one I was looking for. Don't break boxes in Ruined Halls unless you want to fight more stuff. But yeah, they're great House K favor. The Taming the Flames is one that I would avoid though, which is technically a level 7 quest, but it comes out of that same area, that same tavern. It's pretty hard at level on Elite and Reaper.
Yeah, if you don't have evasion, I would wait a few levels before doing that.
Yeah, it's full of fire elementals and fire methods, and Titan's pointing out that Taming the Flames is great for the monster manual. Yes. It's also great for getting turned into a pile of charcoal.
Yeah.
If you get some champion fire elementals, you're probably going to be in a world of hurt.
Or you miss one jump and end up in lava.
Yeah, it's a rough quest. This is one of the few quests that was really difficult when it came out, and it's still really difficult. So.
And again, only one shrine.
Yeah, if you can find it.
And that part where you've got to jump around and get the key, and there's fire jets that can't be disabled, and fire Ellies, and yeah, that's I hate that part.
Yeah, it's a rough quest. It is level 7, but it's kind of in that same area that we're talking about in House K. But otherwise, those quests are great. House K favor, everybody loves House K favor. So, Evil Beaker, what about you? What do you like for level 5? Or not like?
Well, what I don't like is Ghost of a Chance. I know there's a lot of people that like that quest, but the puzzles in there are just too mind. I play DDO after a hard day's work. I want to relax, and sometimes I look at those, and occasionally we'll run this quest, and I'll look at those traps and I'll go, "Why did I come in here?"
It's probably the most extensive puzzle around. If you can define the traps, it's not particularly difficult. Well, it's not like a hard puzzle. It's just a long puzzle.
Right.
And if you do hit a trap, you fail the entire quest, which is why it's a pain. But yeah, so let's talk about Three Bell Cove just in general, because it's kind of a good area. There's some level 4 or level 5 and level 6, I think, and it may actually go up to level 8. I'm not positive on that. But there's the Fire Caves has become a really popular one. It has really great XP for its level. I think they're both level 5. You do run into the fire elemental problem, but they're not something from the fire elementals. If you get a champion, it can be a bit rough. So just be aware of that. But there's not a lot of fire elementals. It's mostly fire mephits, some ogres, that kind of stuff. But yeah, those ones are really great XP. I like Three Barrel Cove. I like the epic versions a lot better than the heroic versions. And I don't know if that's...
Yes.
Some of them are different. Some of them are not. I think it kind of has more to do with the fact that it's just a better level range for me. I think at level 5, some of these quests are a little bit more challenging. In epic, it fills a nice niche of quests. And I think I just kind of ran them more on epic than I ever did on heroic. It's a level 7. I think it's level 7, but I like the I just forgot the name of it. The one that's kind of the maze. You have to find all the little pieces. Scoundrel's Run. I do like that one. Again, it's not one that I tend to run. It's not particularly harder or less hard. It's just there's a lot of other quests at that level that I tend to run over it. Is really all it comes down to. Again, other than Fire Caves, it's not really on the Three Barrel Cove's not really on the let's really run a lot of this and get a lot of XP.
If you're looking for some quick outdoor Slayer area XP at that level, it's a good place to jump in.
Yeah, it's a lovely explore area. Like I said, I do really enjoy the quests on Epic. Yeah, it's a fun place to be. You just don't tend to see it on the really fast track. There are as you mentioned in the title, there are some fun items out there for sure. You can get a pirate bandana, which you can use a mirror glamming on if you like that kind of thing. You can't get the anchor as a weapon. I'm really disappointed about that. I really want to glamour a weapon.
I know you can get the ship's wheel buckler, but you can't get the anchor.
Right.
That's just so wrong. But the Corsair sets, they have some pretty nice bonuses, as I remember.
Yeah. The stuff was updated a little while ago, so it's got some nice loot and stuff like that. Again, it really comes down to there's a lot of quests level 5, so you can kind of be a little bit more choosy about what you run. So I think people tend to avoid, again, other than Fire Case, which has a really good XP to time return. So
yeah, well, there's also the Circus at level 5 in House P.
That's right.
Yeah, and if you can get past the first one, which can be a little confusing because you can get lost in that outdoor area there looking for things for the Hill Giant. I mean, it's not a bad quest, but Party Crashers is a great one for another good one for collectibles. And if you ran the anniversary event, you already know half of it. And then under the big top, some of that end loot can be pretty good.
Yeah, it's Big Top is a must bring a rogue quest.
Yes.
Yes, definitely.
And the trap boxes are a little disassociated from the traps themselves sometimes, so you got to be a little wary of that. But yeah, it's a fun quest. I have a tendency personally, if I'm going from like 1 to 30, I tend to avoid quests that you can do on Epic, just because I can do them in there's just fewer quests to choose from in Epic. So I like to keep those open and get the first time bonus and stuff like that. Having said that, I think the speed group that I've been working with has done the snitch one. I'm having a really bad memory of quest names today.
No, the snitch. That's actually what it's called.
Is it actually just the snitch?
Yeah.
I wanted to put something else on top of that.
And that's a tricky one. I mean, that one you got to kind of pay attention a little bit too, and definitely have a rogue. Yeah.
Yeah, but no, they're good quests. The one thing I'll say about the snitch, kind of a buyer everywhere thing, there's a couple points where you have to get the entire party to the same point, and you can't advance until you do that. And you can actually leave people behind, such that you can't go back to get them unless you have a dimension door. So it's just one of those things you got to be aware of. Yeah. I would say small problem is probably the toughest of them, just because of the jumping portion. It can be pretty brutal, and the end fight, particularly on Epic, can be actually pretty brutal. Let's talk about Necropolis Part 1, the first set. How do you guys feel about those quests?
I really, really, really want to like them.
Same here.
You want to like them. That's a good way of putting it.
I want to like them, but I don't. And I can't stand... I like to solo a lot, so I can't stand that first one, there's no physical, mechanical way you can solo that without either having people with you or getting gold seal hires.
You actually can, because you can turn things to stone on the pedestals. But that's not exactly an easy... It's more of an advanced technique. Yeah, it's... Some alien in the chat room says he doesn't even want to like them. Yeah. There's... Necropolis just in general is not a popular area, with the exception of the capstones. It's kind of for 1, 2, and 3. People tend to avoid them except for the capstones. One I can kind of take or leave it. The thing about Part 1 is 2 of the quests that are kind of larger areas, but you have to find 3 things in the quest. One of them is you have to find 3 specific mobs. There's traps everywhere, which is kind of annoying if you don't have a rogue. And because you're looking for something, people have a tendency to spread out to try to maximize your chances to find it. But then that kind of opens you up to getting killed by traps and monsters and all that kind of stuff. So it's it's the whole splitting the party thing, which can be a bit of a problem. But one of them, you have to find the little dinky runes that are on the skulls. That are really hard to find. So for that reason alone, I tend to avoid those quests. Now, having said that, Bloody Crypt, the capstone, which is at level 6, is very straightforward. It's big, but if you have a really solid party, you can split into 2 groups and have people go in both directions, which can cut your time in half. It's very straightforward. It's big, but it's not really very mazy at all. There's a couple points, like at the end of each of the 4 directions you have to go. You have to figure out which direction to go, but it's I went this way and it was dead end, so I go the other way. They're not hard to navigate. It's not a maze per se. and it's great XP, especially if you can cruise through it. So
These were great quests years ago, and we did them all the time. But since there's been other offerings since then, unfortunately, we've kind of avoided these.
I would say part 1 is not the most annoying set of 4 quests to run.
No, that's part 2.
Yeah, I might go part 3.
Mm.
It's a toss-up, but it's definitely not part 1. It's just part 1. Each of these sets of quests, the Necro quest, has things that are annoying. In Necro 1, it's these 2 quests where you've got 2 quests where you have to find something in this 3 things in this large area, and another one where, like you said, you have to split the party up. They actually all 3 parts actually have a quest where you have to split the party up. This one is more split than the rest. So, yeah, I mean, this is a place that I avoid. It's not because I hate the quests. It's not because they're necessarily really hard. I just don't like to run them. That's really what it comes down to. I'd rather run another quest.
It's too much effort for too little reward.
Yeah, I think it's good. I don't even remember what the XP is, but I don't think it's very good. So. Let's see. Is there anything in level 5 that we haven't really talked about? Delaris Part 1. I'd put that in your must runs. We always run that. Delaris is good XP for the time, particularly parts 2 and 4, which are higher level, which we'll talk about next week. But part 5, you got to run to unlock them, and especially if it's your first life, if you've never run something through here, yeah, you got to run Delaris. Run Delaris. If for no other reason, then you will always get the voice of the master. That's a trinket. You can wear it at level 5, and it's 5% more XP when you're wearing it.
Yep.
I mean, it's a no-brainer.
And even if you run it twice, there's some other good loot at the end of that one too. Not just sometimes you're like, oh, I really want that, but I got to take voice of the master.
If you don't have it, take it. And I would even say take it a second time. Just because you can take the voice of the master and the mantle of the world shaper and some epic tokens and put them in the epic altar, and you get an augment that has no minimum level, that's colorless, so you can put in any slot that gives you 5% XP. So it's it's a great item, one of the best items in the most must-have items in the game. Who doesn't like more XP? I know there's a lot of XP in the game, but come on, you want it.
At low levels, it's great.
Yeah. At any level, it's great. I think it also works for Reaper XP too, although I haven't ever bothered to test that. All right, let's talk about level 6 quests, which there's a fair number of them, and this is where it gets kind of a little. There's less chains with level 6. We've talked about the House K quest, but although on the chain side of things, the first 2 quests of Stardust Isle are level 6. The next 2 are level 7. I like Stardust Isle. I would put Stardust Isle CO6 kind of in my I'm gonna run these more from the standpoint of one, I kind of like the quests. They're all short, and if you're doing the Reaper XP thing, as we kind of talked about, shorter quests means you're getting more you generally are getting more Reaper XP faster, even though you get a penalty because they're shorter. But I think the return on investment's pretty darn good, and the XP for them is all pretty darn good. And you can get some fun loot like the Mummified Bat. We'll talk about that more probably next week because they're more in the 7 to 9 range. But there's 2 quests level 6 that I'd like to run here. They're also, even if you just run these 2 level 6 quests, which actually is what the Buku Fast group that I was running, Ash and I were running with last weekend, they just run the first 2 quests just to kind of get through level 6. Those are really great. What else do we like for level 6?
I love Red Willows. I don't know why, I just really enjoy the quest.
Yeah.
And it's a big circle, so I can't get lost.
No, I like that quest too. That is a fun quest.
Watch out for the scorpions.
Yeah, and the traps in the caves.
I don't actually usually do the caves because they're kind of optional. you can short. This is one of those quests again. You can shorten the time by like half if you just get what you need to do and get out of it. But yeah.
Yeah, but I'm a flower sniffer. We don't shorten things. We do everything.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, it's another one of those. It's got a nice variety of monsters. So if you really like the monster manual, you get a lot of different monsters there. There's a lot of named monsters in here as well, so you can get a lot of fun stuff there. Alien's also saying the giants at the end can make mean champions. Yes, especially the fire ones. Champion fireballs to your face at level 6 is not generally a happy circumstance. While we're in House J, we can talk about so the level 6 quests are generally kind of divided into, people can organize them into, there's the House K ones, which there's also some in level 5, which we already talked about. But then there's some level 6 in House P, and then there's level 6s in House J. All of the other, Redwell is a little bit longer, but the rest of them are all pretty short. There's also one in House D, which we'll talk about. The other ones in House J are Mirror's Sleepless Nights and Dead Predators, which are both pretty nice quests. Again, they're short. Mirrors is a little it's not, again, not a linear quest. You're trying to find some things, but it's not hard to find.
That one's got a nasty trap in it, though, if you're not ready for it.
This one, you also actually revisit this one later in another quest. And I always get confused with the other one. I can never remember the name because I always get confused with ones. And that one's a way longer quest, too. But yeah, so those ones are two pretty short ones. We like to run those. Again, short, easy. You almost can't get lost in these quietly. Well, mirrors you can get lost in, but there's just not a lot of places you can go. They're so short.
Yeah.
Cage Trolls and Purge the Heretics are the ones at level P from the Bogwater Tavern. Those ones, again, short. There are some traps to be aware of in those two as well, so you kind of got to watch out for that. But it kind of goes back to the good old day. Well, I don't want to say that they're better than where we are now, but kind of like the good old days of quests that have a little bit of variety of monsters. There's traps that you actually have, like, you really have to get through the traps to get somewhere. They've kind of gone away from that more. Most traps are pretty easy. The newer quest traps are pretty easy to time to get through, comparatively to what they used to be. Some of these are a little bit more difficult to do so. Anything you guys want to say about the House P or J quests?
Well, we are forgetting one House K quest, and that's the Forgotten Caverns. And I really like that quest.
That's one of the ones out of that
likewise.
tavern. Forgotten.
Yeah.
That's one quest. That's the one with all the trolls, yes.
Yes.
Yep, and a little bit of oozes and a little bit of earth elementals that are really nasty.
The fun thing about Forgotten Caverns is it will tell you if you're not ready for this, because if you can't get past the first room, you're not getting past the rest of it. The first room is a whole bunch of cold methods, so, and the floor blows up, so that can be pretty brutal. But
yeah, we had some new players that we were trying to get into the game, and they're like, "Hey, we killed him! Hey, there's a chest over there. Run across. Whoops!" Down you go. There is no coming back unless you got dimension doors. So,
and that's where the people that are introducing the game to them just kind of sit back and say, "Yes, there's a chest over there. You will learn, Padawan. You will learn." Yeah, these are all kind of good quests. The other quest that's in House D that we didn't talk about was the Bounty Hunter, which I have mixed feelings about this quest. It can be a little bit of a tougher quest, and for another reason. Then there's a section where you have to do a lot of jumping, and there's traps, and there's things shooting you at the other end.
Right.
Which can be a difficult place to get through. There's also a pretty beefy array of casters. Having said that, if Monster Manual is your thing, and you're looking for the player races, this is probably one of the best places you could go. Because there are halflings and warforged and it's all player races. And they're all different, like almost every mob in here is unique. Or unique to the rest of the stuff that's around it. You can find some of them in other places, but it's a great place for monster manuals for the player races. it's also one of those quests where you can shorten the quest by just doing the things you need to do and get in and out. But there's a couple of different directions you can go and do some extra things that are also tended to be fairly heavily trapped. So beware about that.
And you got to be a good
I've
rogue
never
too.
been
Yeah.
I've never been crazy about it just because I do have a penchant for getting lost, and it's not overly linear. And if you're only running it once per life and you don't really ever learn your way around it, it can be a little bit of a pain.
Well, in that hallway, so there's the hallway I was talking about where there's a bunch of platforms you have to jump across, and there's water below. There's actually 2 levels of platforms. So there's the upper level, which is what you actually have to traverse to make it across the cavern. But it's all like every pedestal is trapped. The boxes for them are at the second level beneath. So to disable this hallway, you have to jump down, disable a trap, jump into the water, go back to the beginning, get as far as you can, jump down to the next one, disable the trap, go back to the beginning, and kind of do that to get across it. So it's a little tedious. And there's things shooting you from the other end, which is kind of annoying. But it's not too bad of a quest. And again, it's great variety of mobs for Monster Manual. So there's 2 quests I have left on my list that we haven't talked about. Actually 3. Are there any other ones you guys want to talk about before I run through those?
I was just going to mention the first raid of the game, Chronoscope.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm kind of on the fence on this one. I love the quest. It's a fun raid. I would rather run it at Epic than at Heroic. Having said that, it's got some nice stuff for Heroics. Which you can actually get all those items in the Epic version anyways. Because you have to get the base items to upgrade them to the Epic items, which is a whole other story. And
those items are good probably into the teens-ish.
Depending on the one you're talking about, yeah.
Yeah.
I really like it.
If you're on an Epic
6.
If you're on an Epic tune, you've probably got all the named gear already. If you're on a first lifer, you are probably, unless you manage to get in with a good group, if you're a first lifer and you're semi-new to the game, you probably don't want to run that right at level 6.
Although, like, if you're new to the game and you've got some friends and you can run it on normal, have a good time. It's a fun raid. I really like the raid. It came out when I was in I'd rather run in Epics. The loot has not aged well, and it's the scroll seal shard mechanic, which is a grind and really annoying at times. So it's not really run as much anymore. But it's worth running. I really like the quest. And it is actually I think we did it on DDOCast Splat where we ran it in Heroics on Elite, I think, and it was a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun. It's a raid, so you have to deal with. You're gonna have more mechanics things that you have to deal with. They're not difficult mechanics, but it's a good intro to raiding. It's just I don't know that I would run it at level. I would probably wait. If you haven't run it very much, I would probably wait till you get in like the level 10, 12 range and then run it. Be a little more powerful if you want to run it on Heroics. Particularly if you're a newer player. So, anything else you guys want to bring up before I run through the last couple ones?
Go for it.
Devil Assault, which is the same pack as Chronoscope. At this point, I would avoid it. The reason for this is this is a very strange, abnormal quest. On normal, it's level 6. On hard, it's level 12, and in elite, it's level 18. I think Bravery Streak gets nullified in this one because of that. It's different. I actually like the quest. On Epic, it's actually a great place to get tokens and stuff, although they may have fixed that. One of those weird things that normal gave, like full tokens and a little silly. But it can be a fun quest. It's the I'm gonna sit here in this spot and wait for things to spawn. So it's timed in the sense that things don't happen except by the internal clock mechanism. But it is a fun quest. It's well worth running. It was actually a special event quest that was kind of tweaked and became a permanent quest. On a similar vein is Glade Watch Outpost, which is your normal 6 normal 8 elite. It's the second version of Cobalt Assault. It's harder because if they make it to if they get past you and are able to get to the exit point, you fail. So it's like Cobalt Assault, which I actually kind of like Cobalt Assault, but more annoying because you don't just have to kill stuff, you have to prevent it from getting past you, which makes it a little bit more of an annoyance. It makes it harder, which is great and what you kind of need for that, but I just tend to avoid it.
That's when I really only run if I've got a couple of guildies on running things with me. I don't like to solo it. I don't like. Yeah, I get Glade Watch and Archer Point mixed up, but yeah, I'm not fond of either one of them.
Yeah, there's another one that's kind of with it is Archer Point, which is another one of those. If you know what you're doing and know which direction you need to go, you can shorten that quest in half. I kind of like that one quest. But I don't see people run it very much. There's nothing really special about it. It's just a quest to run and get some XP. There's no special loot or anything on that one. One quest I want to put kind of on my favorites list is Falak's Mausoleum, which is in Dalera's graveyard. And it's one of those. I don't really have a great explanation for why. I just really like the quest. It's timed. You only have a half an hour to do it, which should be enough time once you kind of get some things down. It's a bring a rogue quest. There's a particular hallway that I'm thinking of that has some really nasty traps, and this is back in those good old days where timing a trap was a lot harder to get through. And the many times that I've tried to get through that little section, that little hallway with all the traps without a rogue, I am at best 50-50 of surviving through it, or at least not getting hit. But I like the quest. It's kind of a nice little quest. Anything you guys want to throw in there before we move on to game news?
No, I'm good.
No, I think we pretty much covered them.
Yeah.
Actually, before we do get into game news, let's go around the table. What's your roadmap? So you're running these quests. I get that you're probably not actually running like levels 4 to 6, but what's your kind of your roadmap? What are the quests you're going to hit?
Well, for me and our group, we do Waterworks, SDK, Tangleroot, and then Dalera's, and then depending on where we are as far as quest chains, we either start Sour Dusk or kind of drift back a little bit and hit some of the one-shot quests. But we like to do the quest chains as much as we can first, and then sprinkle in the other ones.
Even though.
Yeah, that's pretty much what the Flower Sniffers do as well. Definitely hit Waterwork, Tangleroot, even though I'm not fond of Tangleroot myself, but, XP, loot. STK, we usually do Sharn just because it's fun. And if there's a couple of us, we can usually, make sure at least one person's a rogue. 3BC Saga beat up is so maybe a little bit above 4 to 6. I think you have to be 4 just to even get into those. We do the one-shot quest, but one of the things we do tend to start on, because several of us are pack rats, is getting those House K, even, for a little under level. Most of us by that point are really, really needing our bank space. Yeah.
Couple notes from the chat. Alien is pointing out for Glade Watch Outposts, I think they changed it so it's if that NPC dies is when you fail it now. Beat Up Kyber is saying he's got to do the 3-Barrel Cove Saga. My route tends to be finishing up Waterworks and STK and Depths kind of at the appropriate level. So at level 4 and level 5, I run those with those levels. Same thing with House K. Level 5, I run the level 5s. Level 6, I run the level 6s. Or if that's for doing Reaper. If you're doing just Elite Streaks, then I'll, whatever the bravery bonus is, because it's just too much XP to leave off the table. I do tend to do Dolera's Part 1 if I don't end up past it. Sometimes I just catch other things and don't do it. But like to make sure I'm getting Dolera's. And then it's kind of if I can find a group that's doing it, I don't solo it, but if I find a group that's running it, I'll jump into Bloody Crypt in a heartbeat, just because it's great XP. These days, I tend to avoid Tangleroot and Carnival and Three Barrel Cove, other than Fire Caves. Those are kind of just the one. Fire Caves is kind of the one exception to those that I'll actually run. And like I said, I like to hit Stardusk because I like to run that one, and then it's just kind of pick up the extra quests as I need them. So the ones in House J and House P, just to kind of get me to the next point. And then one slight editor's note that I didn't mention this at the top, but something that I do. We didn't talk about this at level 1 to 3. I'll talk about now because I'm talking about the roadmap. Is using the XP gems you get from Daily Dice. So a lot of times, if I know I've got a reincarnation coming up, I'll save a gold roll, because usually those ones are big enough that you can eat one or a couple of gems and go straight to level 2. So I just want to make sure I mention that. With that, we can get into game news. And the big news this week was Update 36, Patch 2 hit Lamannia, which is really fun. So they weren't planning on doing it. They don't normally do it, but they threw out a quick Lamannia preview of the patch. It was supposed to be up from Wednesday to Friday, and I think somewhere in there something happened and it stopped working. But things that they wanted to so the bullet points are in-client DDO store is back. Yay! Again, this is on Lamannia, so if there were problems, it may not make it into live. They reworked the Mimic Festival event, which we've been waiting for, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Favored Soul and Cleric base class changes. These are not enhancements, just the base class, and then a bunch of bug fixes. Should nothing change between this and the release, what's going to happen is characters with at least 2 levels of Cleric or Favored Soul will have a bound to character plus 0 Luster Heart in their inventory when they log in. There really just isn't a way to get you the domains and that stuff without having you go through that process. So unfortunate, but there you go. Let's see the patch 2 release notes. DDO store can now be opened in the game. Yay! It does continue to exclusively remain open in external browsers and operating systems prior to Windows 7. Boo. But there you go. The Mimic Festival. While it's active, Mimics Killed now reward Mimic tokens. Players can turn Mimic tokens into a prize guide for a variety of prizes, including collectibles variety crates, so random collectibles, creeping coin cosmetic pets. So those are the oozes that are dressed as coins.
Nice.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how excited are you for that even note?
203.
Yeah. This will get oils of strengthening to prevent item durability loss and some named items for a variety of level ranges. The thing that I really was curious about, so one of the potions you can get prevents item damage, and I'm thinking about this and thinking, does that include death? Because if it does, I am stocking up on these things for when I get dragged into elite shroud runs and stuff like that, where I know I'm going to die a lot. Also, while the festival is active, the bank deposit boxes in the quest Stormweaver's Fresco no longer have a chance to produce mimics. Yes. So favorite soul stuff. We kind of talked about a lot of this, but I'll kind of go through some of it. So favorite soul now uses the higher base ability score of charisma or wisdom for spellcasting. That includes DC calculations, spell points, spell memorization, and checks to see whether you can cast the spell. It used to be like charisma was everything other than DC, and wisdom was your DC. So now you can just have one. That's fantastic. See, also all the favorite soul energy resistance feats are now energy absorption feats, so a little better there. At level 2, you choose between 2 feats. Grace of Battle, which your faith allows you to use your charisma bonus for hit and damage purposes with your DD's favored weapon if it is higher than your strength bonus. It only applies if your favorite soul level is equal to or greater than half your character level. Or Knowledge of Battle, your faith allows you to use your wisdom bonus for hit and damage. Same stuff there. And at level 6, you can now choose between one of the following bonuses. Either 10 hit points per favorite soul or epic level, or 20 spell points per favorite soul or epic, or 30 per epic level. I'm taking the hit points. I got plenty of spell points. That's just me. And so many... I don't know what it is, but like I use a lot less spell point potions these days. Maybe it's because everyone's kind of self-healing for a long time. I don't know.
Well, the Lost Souls have kind of filled a little bit of that gap too.
If you're ready for it and can do it, I think Reaper 1 is easier than Elite, just from the fact you get the Lost Souls and your Reaper action points. But
Yep.
Cleric Domains, they're coming. I am not going to go through them. You've done that a few times on the show, but
if you want, Jerry's Friday lunchtime, he went through them. If you want to watch that.
Do you two have a favorite that you're looking at?
I don't know. I got a 12th level cleric that's ready for this, but I have not decided what I want to do yet.
I'm really looking forward to seeing some. I want to see some more domain fighter splashes. I think that's going to be pretty fun. Let's see. Bug fixes. Here we go. So this will not be all of them, but here we go. A few issues in specific quests have been corrected. The optional objectives in the quest schemes of the enemy no longer grant XP, so gain the confidence of the guards and gain confidence of the Bladesworn. The base XP has been raised accordingly. The reason for that is because you can go in and just farm it. Like, it's easy. You can build macros and do that stuff. They've done that in a bunch of other quests as well. Also, protect Bodger's interest and stop Hasdill's shipment can no longer be played on Reaper difficulty. Aww. I think that has to do with, well, one of those is breaking the boxes, I think, right?
That's the second one.
Yeah, there's no quest. That's stop Hasdill's. Protect Bodger's interest. That may be, I didn't know this, but someone mentioned that the box can't be destroyed anymore. So I guess you could just hop in the quest and just go AFK for 5 minutes and win. So I'm guessing that's what that is. A number of icon issues have been resolved. So reactive heals ward, death block, now not death ward, now displays a la FOM on the buff bar. The FOM passive icon from gear is now octagonal instead of square. Kind of interesting. The guild buff duration buff should no longer disappear upon casting jump or wearing a jump item, which I thought was kind of funny. See, fear immunity uses the correct icon with borders. Battle engineer multi-selector slots now show appropriate icons before they're selected. That kind of stuff. The battle engineer enhancement tree had a number of bug fixes. The special click attacks no longer stop movement when used. Thank you. That was annoying. Some of the damage should now be probably described in the combat log. Let's see, some text stuff. Let's see, number of spells have been issues that fixed. Destruction no longer deals double the damage listed. Sunburst no longer causes permanent blindness instead of causing a timed blind. Sunbeam no longer causes permanent blindness.
I love that sunburst bug.
And some other stuff. Monk feats enhancements that grant damage dice onto hand wraps no longer appear on the weapon list as simple hand wraps. The Blessing of Sylvanus should once again properly appear in the feat list for characters that have the feat. Smoldering Mauls from Temple of Elemental Evil display their name. The rate at which core saves lose their ability has been reduced significantly. And there was much rejoicing. This is an interesting one. They had this under bug fixes, but I didn't actually think of it as a bug. Teleporting to the 12 now places you outside the Tower of the 12 rather than in its interior. Which I don't know if I prefer that or not. It's kind of interesting, but there you go. There are some known issues, but hopefully they stay at Lamannia. Anything you guys want to call out on any of that stuff?
Actually, the last one that you didn't mention, that quarterstaff loses durability, has been reduced significantly. Yay for my acrobat.
Yeah. People still play acrobats?
Yeah, I
haven't
actually
seen one in
don't have a
forever.
quarterstaff user partly for that reason.
Yeah.
Oh no, I love my acrobat.
I did once have this plan of building a tank out of every class, and I was going to do an acrobat for Rogue. I never got around to it.
Well,
Too many things to do.
with was it prismatic bloom, or is that what it's called?
Mm-hmm.
The staff from the temple. Yeah, that made me try the acrobat, and with that and a few other key items, it's actually a fun class to play.
Yeah, sure. Bonus days, 20% heroic and epic XP through today. Yay! Who doesn't like more XP? That's always a nice one. Let's see, store news. Bonus points are through double bonus points through tomorrow, September 11th. Also, the sales or the Honor Your Guild sales. You can get 25% off of Astral Stars, Guild Renown Elixirs, 50% off of Guild Charters and Airship Beacons. The weekly coupon gets you a free Lesser Experience Elixir with the coupon code XP Extras. That's XP and then the word extras through September 14th. I will say, kind of a lead-in, a teaser for the next week's episode. One of the benefits of being a VIP is you don't need to buy a guild charter. You can just make a guild. Right. That will bring us to community news. And for some strange reason, I did not copy the Chronicle, so give me a moment there. Other things that are going on while that webpage is loading. DDO Players News had their 145th episode. Also, DDO Players News had a preview video of the new festival, or new Mimic Festival loot. So, I kind of mentioned this already. There's the Creature Companions. There and the collectible crates. There are some items. They actually look pretty decent. If you don't already have gear in those slots that you like. So there's certainly some options there. Going back to the Chronicle for issue... Actually, before did you guys get a chance to look at the Mimic loot? Is there anything that stood out to you?
No, I haven't seen it yet.
Once I saw the pets, I didn't see anything beyond that point.
Fair. The 249th Chronicle. Community news. Community spotlights. Psycho Blonde is kicking off a new Best of the Screenshot competition. So I think this week was the best screenshot of the Stormweaver. So I think what he's doing there, if I remember correctly, is he's going to give you a prompt, as it were, and then you have to figure out, get the best screenshot of that. Hephaestus is regularly streaming raids, Reaper, and more, so you can follow his Twitch channel. King Kaz, It's Good to Be King, is live every Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time on DDO Stream. And then, let's see. The Guild for the Week, Muscle Tribe of Excellence, is a small guild on Orion that avoids zerging and is dedicated to helping others. Several members have been playing since beta. Find barriers, Finnegan, or Zholang in-game. Learn more. The comment for the week. What class would be best at fishing? These are the questions I like. You have to think about that.
Ranger.
I'm thinking,
that's true. I was going to say rogue because they could sneak up on the fish, but if you can just stand on the bank and shoot them, that's even better.
I think druid.
Or druid or water savant. Just get in there and swim with them.
Something like. Well, see. Now my initial response is druid, because you could wild shape into an appropriately good fishing, right? But if we're talking about DDO, your choices are limited to fire elemental, water elemental, bear, and wolf. And I know bears fish, but I've always kind of had the perception that a bear fishing, at least from like the Planet Earth or all of those kind of shows, that a bear fishing is kind of like just shooting in the dark, kind of a thing. I've never thought that they seem to be very particularly good at it. as opposed to there's just a lot of fish there, so it's easy to catch a fish.
More like bobbing for apples than fishing.
Yeah.
Except, well, bobbing for fish.
So if we're talking about a DDO druid, I'm not sure. I might lean more towards a ranger, but they're both really nature based, so you would expect them to be good at fishing in general. But I'll stick.
Or
with
actually, you could have a bard with Fascinate or a wizard with Hold Monster, and that would be really, really effective.
See, this is one of those great questions because there's a lot of different answers you can go, a lot of ways you can go. I like all of what we're coming with. Fansite news, congratulations to Mickey for hitting 4,000 views on the YouTube channel. We got a shout out for our episode last week. We debated a couple of things, but the primary thing we looked at was sentient weapons. I think we came up with a great design. If they just did our design, everything would be great. There's probably issues with our designs. Let's see. DDO Players News got a shout out for their 145th episode. The Damsels of DDO had a guest, Even Note. Did you have fun?
I did, and they did not let me die. They were running their low epic level gnomes, so I rolled up a gnome on Iconic, and I was going to try to zerk it to 20, and I ran out of time. But they actually got me through hard in the Demon's Den without letting me die.
Nice. That's a tricky quest. Let's see. Even Notes Guild hit 150. Congratulations.
Thank you much.
It gets harder from there.
We had a Wonderpot party to celebrate.
Yeah. BioBreak returned to DDO. You can read about that experience. Thosserine runs Permadeath in a new video. Dirty Williams run with a very bad guild hits episode 107. Fret's Recover the Lost Tome on Reaper video if you want to check that out. Bruce heads to Cultist Base. Let's see, other stuff. We talked about it last week, but I'll mention again. The community rules were updated, so if you want to read about that, there's a link in there. And Cordovan went to Schindlerin and talked bonuses, release notes, and more on the weekly Wednesday lunchtime live stream. Other blog posts. Mickey Delirium had an Epic Reaper. Epic Detour Reaper 2 post. And even though it had a brief history of the Flower Sniffing Guild. Let's see if you want to learn about their history there. DDOCast news. So, DDOCast still going. Evil Beaker has joined us the last couple weeks. That's fantastic. We have a full party. We failed at party wiping last week. That was a change.
Yeah,
Barely.
almost. It was very, very close. It was very close. We're down to 2.
Yeah, it was a little harrowing there. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. Also, the Scavenger Hunt Extravaganza 2 has ended. I am not very far into counting yet, for which I apologize, but it's been a busy, stressful week. So I didn't get very far with that. Hopefully you'll get some progress there. Give me a little bit of time. I gotta go through all the submissions and kind of go through and do a lot of counting and bookkeeping and stuff. So hopefully by the end of the month, it's kind of my goal.
They're so bad, and I just ran out of time.
Yeah. And that will take us to Lightning Post. So Fuzzy Duck 81 wrote in kind of on his rambling thoughts, which he said were a little longer. So this is about our debate episode last week. He's primarily looking forward to the Sun domain for his cleric. Looks really. He also says the Luck domain looks really nice though for displacement, SLA, saves, DCs, and kind of all that stuff. Yeah, I gotta say there's a lot of great options with those domains, which I think is great. So, really looking forward to those. So for the Vistani Knife Fighter, it says, hey, don't Vol worshippers get daggers as their holy weapon. Some interesting potential for melee cleric favorite souls, maybe integrating with swashbuckler rogue. Could make it for different paladin approach as well. Although he says their enhancements are pretty sweet as is. Yeah, some fun things. He's speculating there'll be something to help bypass defenses, bonus points if the slow blade penetrates the shield, makes its way for flavor text. His predictions for sentient weapons. He says you can pick any base type. The personality they've already said will be pretty cosmetic. He's thinking the item properties will scale with your character level, similar to Canth crafting. Yeah, maybe. Weapon growth handled in 2 parts. More effects on weapons unlocked via number of enemies killed. what can be applied to the weapon or unlocked via a number of different stuff. Maybe. He's thinking they'll have maybe up to 6 effects, rarer effects, and taking longer to get. As far as existing personalities, he personally would like Arboth, the crazy kobold from Ataraxia's Haven who thinks he's a dragon. That's a good choice. I like that choice.
Me too.
He's still holding out for that kobold to reappear later to dragging, saying, "I told you so." Yeah, I agree. That should totally be an Easter egg somewhere. That's pretty funny. He also could see the Black Abbot being a potential personality, since shoving the remnants of his phylactery into a sentient weapon seems perfectly reasonable. Might be kind of dangerous. I don't know. He also said a good point about the really good gear versus the best. Yes, it's nice to have the very best gear, but there's still plenty of stuff that ranks anywhere from really good to good enough to get by. The quests these come in are still regularly run for XP, so doesn't always have to be the shiny thing. Steve says for his personality he wants Deacon. And Michael says he wants Emscar as a personality. Also be a good one. He does have although I think Emscar's personality kind of comes out more in the explorer points in the Stormhorns. That's kind of the perception I have there. Idle Bigot says he doesn't know what we're talking about concerning daggers. His assassin rogue uses daggers exclusively from 1 to 30, and he rocks some damage. I don't know if I said this very well last week, but I will say that the primary reason I don't use daggers is because it wasn't until after I had a lot of my weapons that assassins got a lot of bonuses to daggers, and I never bothered to switch it up or test them out, kind of a thing. It's more my laziness than anything else. So. I should actually see about some daggers, though. Ember Cyan said he really liked the discussion about building sentient weapons. He likes the idea of it getting fairly easy, but then the grind component of the system and building up the capabilities of the item. He says it's fairly similar to building up legendary green steel and... interesting with the legendary green steel, though. I get that you can do that, but I've always kind of had the perception that people tend to wait until they can make an entire item and then just make the whole item at once. I certainly do that, as opposed to kind of upgrading it, but I don't know. He says when he ran a D&D campaign years ago, he would give players low-powered items when they were low level, but some of them were not just stock items, but could have abilities added to them via quests. It's a great way to do it. It's pen and paper. I'm sure you've done that, Mr. Beaker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
My last pen and paper group, for the one that I'm in right now, actually, we had a wizard who took all of the I want to craft everything feats, so we would actually make our items, which worked really well for us. It was a lot of fun. It says, regarding power creep, new random loot and the canon of crafting updates certainly add a lot of power to players and trivialize a lot of older content. Having core 2+ Reaper enhancements added to your character outside of Reaper mode play also further trivializes the normal hard elite content. Where we see power creep separating players most significantly, though, is players who either do not recognize changes to the meta or simply do not want to adapt to an ever-changing meta. There are a number of players on his friends list who are still playing their melee DPS characters, even in Reaper mode, and they are simply nowhere near as effective as they were when we were running Heroic Elite, Epic Elite, Legendary Elite content together. Reaper hits their DPS pretty hard, and the Reaper tree for melee range DPS isn't nearly as nice as the caster and defensive trees. But that's the playstyle they enjoy, so they either accept the limits or quit. Yeah, it's an interesting perspective, I think. There's a lot of truth to that. There's actually on the forums there was a thread that started was why play melee anymore, and I think he was trying to have it more of a question of should why do you play melee? This is why I don't think you should play melee anymore. And it kind of devolved into forum griping quickly after. But it's definitely a topic of discussion these days. Muskie Elon says he's not a fan of the quote grind. He doesn't grind for anything. He plays, runs quest chains to get what I get and have fun. That's a great way to play the game.
I agree.
Yeah. He doesn't have any weapons that require grinding. Grinding sounds like work. It feels like work. He doesn't play this game for that feeling. If sentient weapons are going to be only available in raids or only upgradable by raiding, he'll never have one. He doesn't do raids. hey, that's a perfectly valid way, and that goes back to what we were talking about too. Is that's why there's a validity to having that kind of horizontal progression with different items and stuff. So I think it's good that raid stuff is really good, but there's certainly some room for let's have some stuff that's outside of raids that you can use, which I think they do a pretty good job of. So let's see. Bryant says he wanted to add a suggestion for sentient weapons. Kind of touches on how they mentioned they don't want sentient weapons to basically undermine every other weapon in the game. The simple yet most effective way is to have a system where you can, in a sense, assimilate or combine certain named weapons to craft either the personality augment or some other added effect. Yeah, that's an interesting idea. I'm not sure. My only concern with that would be it might create too much work for it to happen. But I like the base idea that run some other things and get that get stuff and just running content, right. I'm just not sure how feasible it is from an actual standpoint, but I like the idea.
It's going to be interesting to see what they do. I mean, there's so many different directions to go.
Yeah. I think, though, the thing that we definitely agreed on last week was we'd like it to be easy to get the thing, and you make it better over time.
Right.
I think we all kind of liked that idea. Keith, who I think is Fennicus on our DDOCast Slack group, says, about personalities in DDO, anybody tell me that having Clanking Beard's soul trapped in your weapon would not be cool. It's hard to argue.
Might get annoying after a while, but yeah.
The problem is, it's just, can you imagine trying to incorporate that into code that in? I mean, that's it's such
easy
a
to
unique
do.
personality. But I agree, it'd be a great personality to have. He's a lot of fun, and can you just imagine you're gonna in a nice his nice accent berating you for you're gonna use that weapon. That's silly, but it actually being terrible advice. Or for those who are newer to the show and don't know, Clinkin Beard used to do a segment that was called Clerical Errors, because I think he usually played a cleric, but it's, I don't want to say it's bad advice, but it's very misinformed. It was not a serious segment at all. It was very comedic and very hilarious. That are well worth listening to.
And it brings us back to Scottish dwarfs again.
Yes. Although his Scottish dwarf is way better than the DM that's in the new content.
I'll go for that.
That's probably by design, but his Scottish accent is great. You can listen to some older shows. I think actually when we did the 400 episode, we pulled out an older segment of his in there as well as other people's segments that hadn't been around for a while. Anyways, survey question this week. Absolix on Thelanis asks, what is the best raid and why?
I actually run with Abs a lot, so I already know his answer and why. He likes Abbott because you have to have such total cooperation to be able to succeed. I don't know what I love Shroud and Todd just because they're Shroud and Todd and they're, quintessential DDO, and I will run them anytime, anywhere with anybody. That's really the only reason.
Sure.
I'll go with Tempest Spine. I that was one of the first ones I ever did, and I really liked that raid.
Yeah, I've actually had this discussion a few times on the show. The one that I kind of keep coming back to is Master Artificer. And this is kind of, it's one of those weird things. So there's a lot of raids that do things that I like in Master Artificer better. Right, like the end boss, there's better end bosses, there's better puzzles in a raid. But the thing about Master Artificer is, I think it pulls all of those things in together better than any other raid does. It's like I like the combination of monsters and the end boss and the coordination and the puzzle that's there. Again, they're all like second or third best, but if you put all the holes together, I think you get the best raid, if that makes sense. Like I like the Lord of Blades. I think the Lord of Blades is the best raid boss in the game. But there's no puzzle in Lord of Blades, right? And I think that I like the Storm Reaver puzzle a little bit better than I like, although I really do like the Master Artificer puzzle, but I think I like the Storm Reaver puzzle a little bit better. But the stuff that's going on in Master Artificer, I think, is better than the rest of the stuff that's going on. You put all the pieces together, and I like Master Artificer more than the other raids. But there's the aspects of other raids that I think are better than Master Artificer, if that makes sense. Kind of the conclusion I keep coming back to. Right.
The whole is more than the sum of the parts, basically.
Yeah.
Or is it the other way around?
Yeah. So there's other places that have better aspects, but I think if you were to sum up all of the score, like scoring a gymnast or whatever, like you look at the different judges and you put them all together. So if I was grading different parts of raids, there's other ones that would score higher, but I think the sum total would be the most out of Master Artificer. And a big reason for that is frankly the puzzle. Maybe the Stormweaver puzzle is better than any of the other raid puzzles, but I think I really like the Master Artificer puzzle. And part of that probably is because I actually had to figure out how it works, and once I did, it was awesome to be able to maneuver that correctly. And it totally, once I learned that and was able to teach it to other people in my guild at the time, it totally opened us up to actually being able to really run it. And this was back when Epic was just, your cap was level 20, and it was a lot harder. Nowadays, people just kind of ignore the puzzle, which makes me sad. I don't know if it's cheating to consider a raid as it was designed when it came out compared to nowadays, but there you go. Anyways, we're going to close out the show here. Even though, do you want to plug your blog and stuff?
Sure. I usually try to blog about once a week at ddoeven.wordpress.com. I'm also live on the official DDO stream on Twitch Sunday nights, 11 p.m. Eastern Time, till usually 1 o'clock. There's nobody before or after me, so it doesn't really matter if I run over, and that's twitch.tv/DDO stream. And also, the scripts are working for RDDO again. I don't know why, but it's back up. I still need to fix the graphics, but rddo.mygamesonline.org, and that's basically just sort of replaces the old MyDDO, the listing of all the most recent blog posts from many, many DDO bloggers.
Mr. Beaker, anything you want to plug here?
Yeah, actually. So if you live in the Wisconsin, Minnesota, Illinois area, there's a little convention in November called Gamehole Con, and they have a lot of cool industry people there for on the pen and paper side. And Mr. Greenwood usually attends that convention, which is cool. But the big news this week that I discovered is if you pre-reg with them for the convention, you get a little plushie. And this year's plushie is a Mimic, and he's cute. So if you like your little Mimic plushies, then this you might want to. Sometimes they have them for sale after the show, but last year I think they sold out. They had owlbears last year, and I am going to try like heck to make this year's show. I didn't make last year, but hopefully work will be more kind to me this year, and I'll be able to go. But it's a great old-fashioned Wisconsin convention now that we don't have Gen Con anymore.
I am like bouncing in my seat over the thought of a Mimic plushie, and I can't go because I did go to Gen Con, and I'm in Pennsylvania, and it's a little bit far. And I want a Mimic plushie.
I will forward the picture I'm looking at to Patrick, and he can send it on to you. He's cute as a dickens.
Oh, thank you.
That'd be kind of fun, little plushies. All right.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for everyone for listening to the show, and thanks to Even Note and Evil Beaker for joining me today, and thanks to all the other contributors for DDOCast, and to Standing Stone Games for supporting us and making the game we love, and for Wizards of the Coast as well, and to Cyberius for hosting the podcast. If you'd like to support the show, you can visit our website, DDOCast.com, or you can support us on Patreon. it's not really a hard plug for money, but I mean, all that money goes towards prizes. That's why I'm able to do stuff like the scavenger hunt and all that stuff. It all funds from donations. The cost of the show are extremely minimal, so that's where all that money goes. You can hit us up at DDOCast.com for show notes, MP3s, our calendar, previous shows, swag, and other fun stuff. If you'd like to be part of the show, or if you have a comment on this episode, maybe a question you'd like to hear us answer, or a topic you'd like to hear us debate, or you just want to say hi, leave us a comment or email us at ddocast@gmail.com. You can also find us on social media and follow us for the latest cast updates. Our closing tip for the week comes from Orion on Kenneth. Relax. Don't rush. Play slowly and enjoy. So until next time, may all your attack rolls be crits, all your chest level appropriate, have fun, and don't forget to gather for buffs.